So kia ora koutou and welcome to today's overview webinar of the Future Development Strategy. So this is going to be the introductory level webinar. My name is Frida Wells. I'm the Communications Advisor for the Wellington Regional Leadership Committee. So I'll briefly introduce today's speakers. Parvati Rotharam, who's the main presenter today, is the project lead for the Future Development Strategy project. And Kim Kelly, who will also be presenting, is the Program Director for the Wellington Regional Leadership Committee. And just a brief overview of what the Wellington Regional Leadership Committee is. The committee is a partnership of leaders in central government, councils and iwi in the Wellington Wairarapa Horowhenua region, formed to work collaboratively to address our region's cross-boundary growth-related issues. And some brief housekeeping before we begin. Note the webinar is being recorded, and your camera and mic are turned off automatically, but these will be turned on when needed for the Q&A. You can ask questions by using the Q&A button and also throw the questions into the chat, and we'll try and answer as many as we can. Or you can email them to the email address that's on the screen, and we will share this with you in the chat, future.developmentstrategy@wrlc.org.nz. So it's my pleasure to hand over to Parvati. Thank you.
Kia ora everybody. Thank you very much for taking time out of your day to join us to listen to where we've got to with the Future Development Strategy. The aim today is to ensure that you're fully informed to put in a submission, because we really want to hear from as many people as possible. We've got all the consultation documents live now at the URL, and actually Frida, we're going to put a link in the chat as well just to make it easy for people to click on that if they haven't been there already. Reminder, this is a presentation as a basic overview, and we have a more detailed presentation later in the week on Thursday that dives into a few more details, especially in the background documents. The structure of the presentation will focus on the questions, and during the Q&A time we'll focus on regional questions first in the interest of time, followed by any local questions and or other detailed questions. And we have some of the team from your local council on this call today to help answer those if you have any of those type of questions. Otherwise, we will get them to respond to you after the session. So we will cover off just a little bit more detail about who the Leadership Committee is first, why the FDS matters to you, understanding a bit more about the process we went through to develop the strategy, and then a walk through the draft FDS, and then obviously Q&A and next steps. So firstly, who is the Leadership Committee? So this strategy has been prepared on behalf of the Wellington Regional Leadership Committee, which is an urban growth partnership. It's part of the urban growth agenda from central government, and it covers three overarching independent areas: regional spatial planning, regional economic development, and regional economic recovery. And the committee provides a unique and collaborative platform to positively influence and drive our region's future. So it brings together our local, central government and iwi organisations. And on this page here, we have a full list of all the organisations that are currently part of the committee. So we have 6 iwi partners that represent our region, from Horowhenua to Wellington to Wairarapa. We have all the councils, so that's 9 different councils. And we have our central government partners as well. And the strategy covers, just an interesting fact, the strategy covers an area twice the size of Auckland, but we've only got about a third of the population. So we've got some interesting challenges in our area that we will be addressing as part of the Future Development Strategy. So what are we actually planning for? So the purpose of the strategy is to achieve well-functioning urban environments. What this means is making sure that we have a great place to live and can get around easily to the places we work and play. We are expecting 200,000 additional people to join us in our region over the next 30 years, which means we need 99,000 more homes for these people. And the reason that number does seem quite large is because we want to make sure we have more than enough homes in our region to provide for future generations. We also need a greater supply of business and industrial land, and providing community services and amenities to make sure we have livable urban environments, so things like parks and schools, pools. We also need to have new and upgraded infrastructure to meet our current and growing needs, and we know there's a bit of a deficit there, so we are looking into that as part of the strategy. And obviously climate change and natural hazard resilience is an important factor to consider as part of this as well. So the strategy is a regional strategy. So it is quite big picture, high level. It sets out the broad locations and for where we want business and housing land. It sets out our constraints for development. It describes our iwi and hapu values and integrates infrastructure planning and funding decisions. And it doesn't rezone land, so it change existing long-term plans, which is the council's budget, but it will inform the future ones that are prepared. Just to this diagram here is just to show you how it fits in with our other plans and policies. So the future development strategy is sandwiched in the middle there between national and local level plans and policies. It is a statutory document that is required by the National Policy Statement on Urban Development. And in the preparation of the strategy, we have been informed by local plans that already exist, such as district plans and infrastructure strategies. And the future development strategy will in turn inform those strategies once it's approved, so to make sure there is clear alignment between national level legislation, regional level policies and local level policies. All the councils and central government and iwi partners in our region have come together to develop this plan. So how have we prepared this strategy? So over the last 12 months, we've been working as a regional team to prepare the strategy. You don't need to read all these background documents, but they're there if you like to understand the detail behind the strategy. The background documents consist of a foundation report that provides the context we are working within and sets out the challenges and opportunities for our region. The constraints mapping brings together existing published council maps, such as flooding areas, natural areas and hazards, and aggregates them at a regional scale to show us where we where we don't want to grow and other areas that we need to be careful about building in. The scenario evaluation report. This is a report that sets out the methodology and results for testing different patterns of growth in our region to understand the advantages and disadvantages of the different patterns of growth. Then we have the regional housing and business assessment. This is, quantifies the amount of housing and business land we need for our region to meet our future needs of the 200,000 people we're expecting. And the interesting finding from this, which is quite unique for the country, is that our region has a ton of capacity for housing, way more than we need, twice as much as we need. So we've got a lot of opportunity in our region to make sure we have enough homes for people going forward. And finally, we have an engagement report and an iwi and values aspiration report, which provides more detail about the engagement we've taken to date and the work we've done with our iwi partners on the leadership committee. So all of this mahi is informed the preparation of the future development strategy, which I'll now take you through. Firstly, I'll take you through the 4 spatial aspects of the strategy, which is the vision, the strategic direction, the iwi aspirations, and then how we prioritise areas for development. So firstly, our vision. Our vision is to ensure we're able to provide for growth that are sustainable to our current needs without compromising the needs of our mokopuna and those that come after them. We also want to make sure the future is founded on Te Tiriti and realised through tino rangatiratanga of our tangata whenua. This is our North Star, so everything that we try to propose in this strategy is about making sure we can provide for our future generations and not compromise their ability to have well-functioning urban environments. Our strategic direction consists of 6 principles, and our questions in the consultation overview document and on the online survey centre around these key parts of our strategy. In setting the strategic direction, we have deliberately described the region we want to hand to our descendants. And some aspects of the strategic direction do set bold ambitions, reflecting our aspiration to develop a region that we can be proud of passing on to our children and to their children. And we don't expect the strategy to achieve these alone, but through other work undertaken such as regional emissions reductions plan, the economic development plan, and working together in partnership with all of the partners on the committee, we can do this. So the 6 parts of the strategic direction is making sure we can provide for affordable housing that meets our needs and for a compact, well-designed towns and cities. realising our iwi and hapu values and aspirations in partnership with those iwi partners, promoting a flourishing zero emissions region, protecting what we love, like natural areas and sites of significance to Māori and other important sites, ensuring we have the infrastructure we need to thrive. So an infrastructure is not just transport like the icon indicates, it's water, it's pipes, it's parks, it's schools, it's electricity. So it's a holistic, we need all of those things to make sure we can thrive in our region. And we need to provide opportunity for productive and sustainable local employment as well. So more detail about these strategic directions is in part 2 of the strategy document, and question 1 of the survey asks you about this, the vision that you saw on the previous screen and the strategic direction and your thoughts on that. So the next part of the strategy is the iwi value and aspirations. So they are an important part of the strategy, and we've worked with 6 of the iwi partners who participate in the Wellington Regional Leadership Committee to develop the statement, which is detailed in part 1 of the strategy document, and with even more detail in the separate iwi aspirations report. And question 6 in the feedback form asks you about how we can support our iwi and mana whenua, our Māori communities to realise their values and aspirations in our region. Throughout this process and going forward, we obviously will continue to work with our iwi partners in the Leadership Committee and recognise there are other Māori in our region that don't whakapapa to this area, and we'd like to support those as well to realise their values and aspirations. So the Future Development Strategy promotes a compact urban form, and by this we mean mostly growing up, not out, and we recognise this will look different in different parts of our region. I'll show you some maps and images in a minute, but first I'll take you through the priority criteria that we've developed in the Future Development Strategy. So firstly, we will prioritise areas that are important to our iwi partners to be able to bridge that gap in housing that we know exists for Māori in our region. Second priority is areas with good access to employment, education, public transport, and by public transport and active modes. The third is priority development areas, and I'll explain those a bit more on the next slide. Number 4 is within existing rural towns with current and proposed good public transport. So we want our rural towns as well to be able to intensify what is appropriate for that context. And finally, greenfields, but only if they're well connected to existing urban areas in our towns and cities. And the strategy does not support development that doesn't meet these priorities. The developments included in this FDS will guide our region's investment in infrastructure and guide where and if new crowdfunding is received by major infrastructure projects. By building in existing urban areas, we can improve the infrastructure for our current population and provide for future generations. And slide. So priority development areas. What are they? So these 7 areas are our priority development areas, and they are specifically selected as part of the regional growth framework, which was our region's previous spatial strategy. And they are meeting our criteria that we want our region to have. So we want they kind of help us achieve our carbon emissions. They are away from highly productive land. They protect our natural areas. We've got partnerships with iwi in these 7 areas. Some of these 7 areas, they provide opportunities for employment or are well connected to employment areas. There's opportunities to link to public transport, provide a great range of housing, and partner with different people to provide the infrastructure that we need and help us be climate ready. So these areas here, they already have, you may be familiar with some of these, such as Lower Hutt Central. We've got the Riverlink project underway, and alongside that, we want to be able to intensify the Lower Hutt Central area. Let's Get Wellington Moving. Mass Rapid Transit Corridor is another project that is well underway with partnership with central government, local government, iwi. Trentham is around the racecourse there. There's a piece of land that the council and iwi and developers are working on to create a mixed-use development. Featherston is another opportunity for the Wairarapa to really master plan that town and help it thrive. Porirua is a large greenfield site. Otaki is another opportunity to partner with iwi and help that town centre and town. And Waterloo is around the train station. So is there an opportunity to do a mixed-use transport-oriented development there? So these projects here are specific projects that have got a lot of stakeholders involved. There's a bit of complexity involved, and we're all working together to try and realise these awesome opportunities. So these are the maps that we've got in the future development strategy. You'll see this map on page 36 of the strategy or page 14 of the consultation document. And this one sets out our metro areas. And by metro areas, we mean the faster growing councils in our region and the more urbanised areas in our region. So that's Kapiti District Council, Wellington City, Porirua City and the Hutt Valley councils. Now you won't be able to see this key clearly, but you can obviously look at them in the document online. But what we're illustrating here is the concept in the strategy to maintain a compact urban form by intensifying existing urban areas along our train lines, which is the orange areas you can see on the map there. And within Porirua as well, we've got some opportunities working with Ngāti Toa on developments in Eastern Porirua and Kenepuru. And as mentioned before, Trentham as well as an opportunity to work with Ngāti Toa. And the yellow areas you'll see there is the priority development areas I just mentioned. So on this scale, you may not be able to see it, but because it's hidden by the orange, but Let's Get Wellington Moving and Riverlink are there too, as well as the Porirua Northern Growth Area. The purple areas are the business areas that we want to be able to support as part of the strategy, and the most significant one being Judgeford Flat on this map is an important area to provide for much needed industrial land. In the so what could this development look like in these metro areas? So this is a visualisation from some of the Let's Get Wellington Moving collateral, and what we want to be able to see is in our future is more higher density housing that's well connected, that provides for kids to play, that provides for cycling opportunities, active modes. And so this visualisation is just really to show you the kind of city we could have. Now, this kind of scale will obviously not apply to the whole region. So this is what we kind of expect in our more urbanised areas like Wellington Central or maybe Lower Hutt. In most of our city, we could expect more intensification like on this scale, which is a 3-storey apartment building. And in the strategy, we've got in the appendices more information about creating well-functioning urban environments through placemaking principles and through what it means on a sub-regional scale. And by sub-regional scale, we mean for your local district. So in our rural towns, we expect obviously something different. But again, we want to focus on building up within our existing urban areas within those towns. So on the left-hand side, you see a map of the Wairarapa, and on the right-hand side, a map of Horowhenua and Otaki. And in those areas, again, we've got the benefit in our region of a great train line that can be enhanced and support greater intensity of development within these rural towns to help them thrive. So we've proposed in the Wairarapa concentrating growth within existing urban areas with some smaller greenfields on the periphery where they're well connected to existing environments. And a significant opportunity in the Wairarapa is the Wainawa Industrial Estate. It's an opportunity to expand that existing area to provide much needed industrial land and jobs for the Wairarapa. In the Horowhenua area, again, looking to intensify and provide industrial opportunities to the south there of Levin. And within Otaki, working together in as a priority development area to provide better opportunities of partnering with iwi, central government and developers to build up that town. And so in our rural towns, again, we wouldn't expect those kind of images that I've shown you earlier. We kind of would expect more of a this kind of scale of development. So you don't need to freak out about having high density developments in those areas. So question 2 of the survey asks you to tell us what you think about the way we've prioritised our housing, which I've just explained, areas, and the approach to where we put different housing developments. So onto business and employment. For all of us to thrive, we need to be able to access business and employment and services. With the FDS, we prioritise building within existing urban areas. We know we have enough capacity for most types of business in our existing areas, but especially because recently we've intensified a lot of our business land through district plan processes. So there is plenty of opportunity to provide for further retail and commercial activity, but industrial land is the one that's a challenge. And there's potentially a need for another 2 Seafield, Gracefield type sites across our region. And we are doing a separate project to look into that in a bit more detail. But we're obviously providing for and prioritising some industrial land areas that I have mentioned earlier. We also support existing and new industries through our economic development plan, which has 33 key actions, which there is a map of on the screen at the moment and on page 43 of the strategy document. And question 3 asks you whether you agree with our approach to the way we've prioritised business areas or where we've located business areas. So onto infrastructure. Obviously, it's the key to getting the development we want. And with the FDS, we propose to maximise the use of our current and planned infrastructure. Infrastructure in this case includes your pipes and roads, but also your schools and parks. Everything we need to support ourselves to live, work and play in our region and create well-functioning urban environments. We know that infrastructure has not been invested in well over the last decades. So from the constant stories we see in the media, but by concentrating our growth in existing urban areas, we can improve the lives of our existing populations as well as provide for future generations as we upgrade our infrastructure. And the map to the right provides, which is in more detail on page 50 of the strategy, but it sets out what we've already funded. As part of the implementation plan, we are looking into what else we need and ways to fund it. So we know there is potentially a gap and we'll need to prioritise the funding for the infrastructure we need. And on the transport side, we are prioritising improving public transport and cycling to be able to encourage these uses more than driving. And this map here sets out our current plans for investing in transport across the region, and you can see it in more detail on page 51 of the strategy. Just as to explain the key for this one, the green and black is what's underway and proposed. Is what's underway, sorry, and the proposed is orange. So we've got some key projects in there about providing more cycleways, improved safety improvements, Otaki to Levin motorway, and again the FDS implementation plan, which will be is currently being prepared and will be available in the new year. We'll have more detail on these and other projects that we need to consider to make sure we can easily get around our region. And question 4 asks your opinion on our approach to infrastructure. And final topic is emissions and climate change. Now, we don't have a specific question on this. We have this incorporated into the question on protecting what we love. So emissions and climate change is obviously an important part of the strategy and sort of covers all of those priorities in some way. So from a climate and emissions perspective, we have an advantage in this region to be blessed by 2 spines of train lines, which can provide a pretty good service to our metro areas. By building in our existing urban areas, new populations can be well connected to public transport and reduce their car use to support emissions reductions. We understand there is a gap in the east-west along State Highway 58 in terms of public transport and active mode connections. So there's an opportunity to investigate this further as part of the implementation plan. And we also have these other projects underway, the Regional Emissions Plan and the Climate Adaptation Plan to come, which will be incorporated into the next future development strategy. And as mentioned earlier, constraints mapping is one of the key parts of this the process, and we're proposing to protect the areas that we love. We've used existing council data sets to prepare the maps that you see on your screen. So on the right-hand side is the Waihi Toitu areas, which are the areas we need to avoid development in, and they include obvious things like our parks, areas that are important to iwi, highly productive land, and other important areas. On the left-hand side, the Waihi Toi Ora are areas we need to think carefully about when we do development. And these will be things that you will potentially come up when you're consenting a development, like flood areas, other hazard areas, and the point of this constraint mapping is for regional spatial planning only. The constraints mapping is a constantly evolving process as new information comes to light. And if you want to know more about your local sites, then your council is the best bet. But these maps, just to let you know, aren't including any new information it's all using existing council published data sets. So question 5 asks you about protecting those areas that we love and what you think of our approach to categorising these and protecting these areas. So that's the end of the content that I was going to present. This is a reminder of the questions that we're asking in our survey. So as I said, whether you support the vision and strategic direction, your support for our proposal to prioritise housing and business, our proposal to invest in infrastructure and protecting those areas we love, and how we can best support the values and aspirations of Māori, and then anything else you want to be able to tell us. So I'll finish talking there, and we'll now have time for pātai or questions, and Frida will manage that part.
Thank you so much, Parvati. So floor is open for questions. You can click the Q&A icon at the top of your screen and add a question into the Q&A. And I'm going to, as Parvati mentioned, try and prioritise regional focus questions. And between Kim and Parvati and other core members, if it's relevant, we'll do our best to answer. So Parvati, I'll start with a question from Ingrid Downey. When you say we have tons of capacity for future housing, does this measure our region's ability to house those who can't afford market rents and market purchase? And is there any more information on households not able to house themselves at market prices?
Thanks, Ingrid. The Housing and Business Assessment sets out how much feasible housing there is for our region, which shows that we have twice as much as the 99,000 homes that we need. Detailed analysis, I suppose, in terms of that housing is going to provide for those that are, can't afford to buy something. We can't really put a number on that as part of the analysis. The theory being that obviously if you have an oversupply of housing, that will keep prices down. And obviously we need to support social housing providers, I know such as Dwell, to be able to provide the type of housing that those that can't afford standard housing can be in. And in terms of information about households not being able to house themselves at market prices, MHUD has a data dashboard that has some of this affordability matrices on it. And we're also preparing our own leadership committee housing dashboard as well, that will bring some of that data across for the Wellington region so we can see it in one place, and we can maybe provide a link to that as well.
Thank you. So we only have one other question at this stage. Just from Emily Levinson, is Horizons Council included since Horowhenua is in the Manawatu-Whanganui region? And why is Horowhenua included in the strategy?
I can probably answer that, given it's a leadership committee question. So I'm Kim Kelly, I'm the Program Director for the Leadership Committee. Horowhenua was included in our first regional spatial plan, the Wellington Regional Growth Framework. And the main reason it was is because Live in particular is a key part of our housing market. So, even more so in the last 4 or 5 years since we started doing this, people who live in, work within our region and travel around within it. So that's why Horowhenua was in there. And I see subsequent part of your question is this connected to the NBEA push towards regional planning committees? Actually, sadly, under the NBEA, Horowhenua wouldn't actually be, because it would contract back to the normal region. And your question about Horizons, so we have on the committee itself, we have the members, but then we also have observers, and the chair of Horizons Regional Council sits on the committee as an observer. And actually we're going to present to the strategy committee, I think it is in early November as well.
Thank you, Kim. So moving on, we have 2 more questions currently. David asks, how will the change in government affect existing plans such as Let's Get Wellington Moving, MRT, National's approach to Greenfield, etc.?
I knew that question would come up. Yeah. So that question come up a bit. And I guess the answer to that question that we've talked about at both the leadership committee and the CEO level is this is the region's 30-year spatial plan. So this is where collectively all the partners believe growth should be. And sometimes in an election cycle, whether it's central government or local government, that it will be harder to implement, and other times it will be easier. But, it's not a plan we're going to change every 3 years as the government changes. So, for instance, in the Let's Get Wellington Moving corridor, we're assuming 19,000 new homes. That may or may not differ with MRT or not MRT, but it's still their growth corridor. So the plan doesn't change. And with regards to the comment about greenfields, National's comment about greenfield is, my interpretation is that we don't need the MDRS. You guys, as long as each region, as long as you have enough capacity for growth, you could ignore MDRS and building greenfields. We already know, as Bhavati noted, that we've got, 50 or 60 years worth of capacity for housing growth. So in theory, we don't need to make any more district plan changes.
Thank you. We have a good question here from Joel. Nice FDS 101. Just at a basic level, he asks, what is the difference between this strategy versus the previous regional growth framework?
Thanks, Joel. So this strategy we've used the regional growth framework as a basis, and then we're built onto that. And one of the biggest changes, I suppose, is the greenfield assumed in the regional growth framework. There was a lot of greenfield because at that time we hadn't done a lot of district plan changes to allow intensification. And so there was a serious lack of capacity in our region. So there was quite a few greenfields proposed in that regional growth framework, but now we know we've got a lot of capacity within our existing urban environments. So one of the biggest shifts is reducing those and focusing our growth within our existing urban boundaries.
Angela Gordon asks, do the FDS increased housing plans consider potential managed retreat plans and the need to rehome affected homeowners and renters?
At this FDS doesn't, short answer. We are, as I mentioned previously, we are going to be doing a separate piece of work called the Climate Adaptation Plan for the region, which will look at this issue in particular, to look at a regional approach to manage retreat, and the next FDS will be stronger on that aspect. We have obviously, for some obvious reasons, not indicated places like Petone for intensification, because we know that potentially is an area that will be impacted. And so we've kind of considered it lightly in that way, but the climate adaptation plan will provide more thinking and detail on that for the next FDS. So actually I didn't mention, but the FDS is required to be reviewed every 3 years and replaced every 6 years. So in 3 years' time, hopefully we'll complete that adaptation work and be able to provide that detail. And obviously with the Natural and Built Environment Act and the Spatial Planning Act, the next full FDS is potentially likely to be a regional spatial strategy in 6 years' time. In terms of next steps, obviously we've got the consultation open now. It's open till the 9th of November. And we will look to summarise those submissions and publish them by the end of November on the website, ready for hearings for those that want to be heard from the week of the 11th of December. And then in the new year, have the updated FDS and implementation plan with the idea of endorsing the final plans in March, at which point they will be operative. So we'll leave it there if there's no other burning questions. Oh, and we've just got something coming in from Sky. Interested in the Featherston as a growth area, how do you envisage higher density in rural town? How will the lack of sufficient infrastructure here impact rollout? So Sky, that's the purpose of the master planning process that's currently underway in Featherston. So that detailed piece of work is being prepared at the moment by South Wairarapa District Council, looking into what higher density looks like for Featherston. It's not going to be like that image I showed you before of Wellington City, but more in the 2 to 3 story range. And obviously infrastructure, we know water is an issue in Featherston already. So as part of that detailed planning, that's all being considered. And then as part of the implementation plan, we'll look at including that infrastructure. We've got the QR code take you to the survey on the screen at the moment, and the email address there as a reminder. So please do reach out if you have anything further you want to say. Thank you, everyone.
You've covered it all so well, Parvati. If people are interested, there's also the more advanced diving into the details webinar on Thursday at the same time. Well, it looks like we do not have any more burning questions. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. And this recording will be made available on our website pretty soon. So thanks again. Ka kite.
Thank you, everyone.